Hey, what's going on, everybody? So today I had the absolute pleasure and honor of sitting down with the one and only Rafael from the uh, popular Subie You Podcast. It's still, I guess, technically a smaller podcast, but it has just exploded in popularity in the Subaru community within the last couple of years. And I wanted to sit down with him and talk to him about his Crosstrek and his Subaru journey and his build. And then, we also just kind of talked about life stuff, and we talked a little bit about the Subie You podcast and sort of how it started, why it started, and sort of his experience kind of growing that and sort of where he wants it to go in the future. Um, I This has just been fantastic. His podcast is just a real, I guess you could say it's a real blessing to me every week to be able to sit down and listen to it while I'm either at the gym or at work. And I feel like he's just done such a great job of bringing people in and sharing their experience and their story, and giving a little bit of personality to these different cars. These people that we see on social media. You don't really get to know that person. You don't really get to know the backstory behind their build, and so it's just really enjoyable. And there's a lot of newcomers to our community that may not have a big local presence of other people that are into this stuff. And through this podcast, there's been tons of people that have been able to connect, to share information, and just gather ideas for their build and get inspiration. So I just think it's a real positive thing for our community. His platform is real positive. Everything he's doing is just very positive. He's just a really good guy. And so if you haven't already, I just want to ask that you would head over to the Lifted Imports website, check out the article that he helped me put together about his car, and he shares a little bit of everything in that article about just his involvement in the Subaru community. I think it's actually really insightful. There's a lot of good information there if you're wanting to build a Subaru and take it off-road. The cool thing about his is it's actually not even lifted. He still takes it off-road, and he explains a little bit in that article and in this video as to why he hasn't yet lifted it. And it's just kind of encouraging to see somebody taking a Subaru and taking it off-road in relatively stock form. He's got a lot of modifications, but it's still stock height, so it's just really encouraging for some people who may not be able to lift their car right now. But yeah, go head over there, check that out. If you can manage it, I would also like to ask that you would head over to his Patreon and subscribe to that. I'll put a link to that in the video here, and then that's also linked in the article on the website over at liftedimports.com. But I am just super, super honored and happy to be able to present this, quick conversation between the two of us. It's nothing crazy. It's just real fun to just be able to sit down with him and kind of get to know him. We've talked prior to this, but this is the first time we've actually got to meet. We just talked over Zoom and had a really good phone call, and it was just really good getting to know him. So I hope you enjoy this, and if you can like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe so that we can just continue to put more stuff out like this. That would be so great, and I hope that you have a fantastic, wonderful day. I kind of just wanted to touch on some of the stuff that we already covered, like in the article, just to sort of have that going. But I did have a couple of follow-up questions that I wanted to ask you.
Okay.
But like just right out of the gate, can you just tell everybody like what kind of car you got? And I guess maybe if you'd tell everybody like the trim level and I know there's one big option that you decided to look for when you bought that car. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's a 2021 Crosstrek. It's a base model, and it is a manual. Like that was that was the thing. It's like that I test drove one back in 2016. I drove a test drove a manual, and I knew that when I got one that I was going to get a manual. Like I didn't really want one unless I could get a manual. Like I'm getting a manual. I don't care like how long I have to wait. Because I was in a position where I didn't have to have a car, but my other car was getting I don't know, it was just, I was kind of having some issues with it. So it was like time, and I got some really good financing on it. So I'm like, I got to
Yes.
take advantage of it.
I love that. Yeah, I'm kind of a nuts for sticks, save the manuals type of guy. Like
Yeah.
up until probably the current Forester that I have right now. I bought it a few years ago. Before that, all my cars have been
Yeah.
either 5 or 6 speeds, man. So
Yeah.
I
I was
feel
talking to somebody recently, and they said that they have never driven or owned an automatic car. Like they've always had a manual. And that would have been my preference. I've had two manuals before. I had a 1990 Ford Ranger, and then I had a 97 Ford Ranger, and both of those were manuals. So yeah,
Rangers are sick too. That's those are they're like the cockroaches of cars. You can't kill them.
yeah, yeah,
You got to beat them hard to put them in the dirt.
yeah, yeah. I kind of miss my truck. It was fun.
Yeah, yeah, and you can, if you have to go to the hardware store and do a little bit of, you know, pickup or something like that, you're just like set.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's
let's,
what I like about the Crosstrek, is because you have the hatch area, you're not just limited by the trunk, so you can
yeah,
put more stuff in the back, which is nice.
yeah. My daily is a wagon. I've got like a Legacy that's on like Fortunato coilovers, and it's just like slammed on the ground. But I'll go to the Home Depot and stuff lumber in the back.
Yeah.
People,
Nice.
they'll kind of clown on me, but I don't care.
Yeah.
So I know you said you didn't necessarily need a car when you bought it. Were you just kind of at that point where you're like, man, I'd like to have a new car, or was it specifically I want that car and I'm going to make it happen?
Well, so like I had been wanting a Crosstrek for years. So I saw the first one back in 2013, saw an orange one, and I just like it, kind of fell in love with it, because I was like, what is this thing? It looks so different than anything else I'd seen.
Yeah,
And I mean, like I said, I test drove one in 2016, because back then I knew like my next car is going to be a Crosstrek. But I had a 2012 Kia Forte. It was a
hmm
hatchback, and I drove that. I mean, until the latter part of 2020, and I had like 122,000 miles on it, but it was having some issues. Like I was on the freeway one time, and I was getting into like the HOV lane,
hmm
or the toll lane, and I was merging into it. Thankfully, there weren't cars on the toll lanes, but as I'm going on the ramp, I or into the entrance into the toll lane,
hmm
my car died. Like it wouldn't go. Like the all the lights and everything came on the dash, and it sounded like the engine was still on. But when I pulled over and I went to hit the gas, like it just didn't do anything. And so
What?
yeah, so I put it in park, turned it off, turned it back on, and it started to drive. But then the check engine light was on. And so ever since then, just kind of worried about driving it really far.
Yeah,
And so, I drove it for like another year or so, and I just didn't really have the money to like put a lot of money, because it was past the warranty and everything.
yeah.
And so, yeah, what happened is I was wanting to get a car, was really working on my credit hard, and I got an email, or I logged into my bank, and they said that they had like special financing, like 1.89%. And I was like,
Sign me up.
yeah, I was like, I think I'm gonna try to get a car now. And I'm like, I know I'm gonna get a Crosstrek. Like I had known that I'd been wanting one for years. And so I decided to go ahead and fill out the application. And I was thinking, maybe I'll get like 3 or 4, maybe even 5%. Because I had always had, like, I think I hadn't had anything lower than 10% interest, which sucks. That's
Yeah,
horrible.
yeah.
And so, but I got a response back saying I got approved for the 1.89%. I'm like, holy crap. All right.
Sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
that,
So,
do
huh?
you bank with a local credit union?
Yes, I
Oh,
do.
good. Okay. Yeah, they usually have the best auto loan rates, at least
Yeah.
in my
So
experience.
I was like, let's do it. Then it was just a matter of finding the Crosstrek.
Yeah. And in let's see, what year did you buy yours? Did you buy it brand
Bought
new?
it in September of 2020, and it was a 21.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
it
uh,
was brand new.
yeah, that was a hopping market. I don't know if it was as crazy in Texas because I live in Oregon and bro,
Yeah,
everybody. I live kind of out in East Oregon, which is less populated with Subarus, and even out here, they're everywhere, you know.
yeah.
But how was the search for it? Was it pretty rough?
It wasn't terrible. I mean, so there's six Houston area dealerships. None of them had a manual. And then there was one out west in San Antonio that was a cool gray khaki, but there was a couple that was there looking at it, and the sales manager there said, if this couple doesn't buy it, then you can have it. But they ended up buying it. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. So then, like, my sales guy at the dealership here was like, okay, I'll keep looking. And then he found one in McKinney, which is north, just past Dallas. And
Okay.
so that one was available. And so he ended up, and it was like, I don't remember what day it was that he told me he found it, but he was like, oh yeah, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drive one of our Crosstreks up there, and we're gonna do a trade, and I'll drive yours
Yeah.
back down. And so I was like, okay, cool. And he was like, I can't go until, like, later this week. And then,
Oh, it's gonna
yeah,
sell.
yeah. Well, I put like a $500 deposit. And
Oh, okay.
he's like, we will not sell it. You're
Okay.
guaranteed. I'm like, it's just a matter of going up there and getting it. So I was like, okay. So then he he was like, yeah, I'm gonna go get it. I'm gonna get it. And then, like, the end of the week came and went, and I was like, are you gonna go get it? And then he was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go get it, like, probably go up there on Monday. And I was like, okay. And then Monday came, and he was like, I'm not gonna be able to go until Tuesday. And then I'm thinking, like,
Just
is
give me the keys, bro.
yeah, it's like,
I'll
is this
go.
really, I mean, is he just like stalling because something happened and he doesn't want to tell me? I'm like, I'm not, and I wasn't even excited. Like, even though he found one, I wasn't excited. I'm like, I'm not going to get excited until it's here. And he brings it here. So he did drive up there, I think, on Tuesday evening, and then or Tuesday during the day, maybe. And then I guess maybe he came back on Wednesday or something. And then I ended up picking it up on Thursday. And he sent me a picture of it when he had gotten up there to it,
Okay.
the dealership. And then what was funny is I was selling my other car to CarMax because they were giving me more money than the dealership would.
Hmm.
So he's like, hey, I can come pick you up in the Crosstrek, and then you can drive it back to our dealership. I'll pick you up at CarMax. And I was like, okay. But then I was nervous because I'm like, I haven't driven a manual in a really long time. So I don't want to look like an idiot trying to drive this thing out of here.
Yeah.
But I did fine.
Yeah. Yeah. It's different from car to car, but it's kind of like riding a bike. Once you do it, you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
I get into the Forster's an automatic, my daily's a manual, and then my
Yeah.
Jeep's also an automatic. But when I go from driving my daily to my Forester, I'll smash the brake with my left foot occasionally. Like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
There's no extra pedal there.
Yeah.
It's the worst.
Yeah. Back
Um,
and forth.
yeah. I wanted to ask you, I see this question all the time. People are always curious about this. And I know your Crosstrek isn't lifted right now, but you said that, so you bought it brand new and you said you financed it first. Did that, has that kind of altered the way that you've decided to modify the car? Did that make you more hesitant knowing that, you still have to pay for the thing? And second, with it being a new car that's obviously under manufacturer's warranty, have you run into any issues, even with like aftermarket wheels and tires? Have there been any issues in that regard that you've run into?
So for the first question, I didn't even really think about it. I mean, and I wasn't planning on doing any mods because I just didn't really, I knew that there were mods because I had started following some people, but I didn't really think that I would do anything with my car. And then I guess the more I started getting into the community and started thinking about it, I was like, these people are doing some pretty cool stuff to their cars, to their Subarus. And then, but yeah, I mean, doing stuff to it and still having to pay for it. Like, I didn't even just didn't even think about it. But
Cool.
because I know people that have done or not done certain things until they paid it off,
Hmm.
or until, it was out of warranty.
Yeah.
But as far as like doing stuff to it, I haven't come across any issues with it. So
Cool.
yeah.
And they haven't given you any grief, like at the. I mean, it'll depend on whether or not somebody has an issue that comes up, but they've never said, "Hey, these all-terrain tires, they're not stock."
No, no. I mean,
Good.
I haven't taken to the dealership in a while because I've been doing like all my own oil changes. But
Yeah.
I'm actually taking it in next week to not the dealership, but a small shop here in Houston. And it's a couple of guys that are Subaru technicians that started up their own shop. And so I'm going to take it down to them and
Give them a
get it.
shout out.
Yeah,
Who is
yeah. It's
it?
Houston Car Garage.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I haven't had my car serviced in a long time other than oil changes.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. You got what? Almost 90K on it?
Yeah, I'm at like 84,000. So,
Oh, fudge.
yeah,
What is that? Like an average of like over 40 grand a year?
something like that. Yeah.
Oh, you're a machine, man. What are you gonna do?
I don't know, just keep going. I
Yeah.
mean, I've driven to Colorado, I've driven to Arkansas a few times because my daughter was going to school out there. I drove all the way up to Madison, Wisconsin. I mean, that alone was 1,100 miles one way.
Yeah.
And I've driven out to Austin several times, driven out to San Antonio, and then drive up to see my girlfriend almost every other weekend. And she lives in Dallas. I live in Houston. And
Mhm.
then I just drive around a lot here. I mean, me and my son are always going somewhere. We're always going like downtown or, just driving around looking at stuff, just whatever. And so, I mean, I'm in my car a lot.
Yeah. I love that you go out with your son all the time, man. That's rad. Most people are content to just sit around and like play Call of Duty or something.
He would, what I like is that he would prefer to be outside doing
Hmm.
something, sitting in front of the, computer or playing
Yeah.
video. I mean, he likes playing video games and stuff. Like he's been playing Forza Horizon lately, but he,
Can't fault him for that.
no, no. But I mean, if he had his preference to go out and do something, he'd rather go out and do something. So, like when we went to Colorado, he loved that. He loved being out in the mountains and being outdoors.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. I can't help it. Like that's why I drive. That's why I build cars so I can go places and do things. It's like, yeah,
Right.
I don't want to sit at home. I want to go to a camp spot.
Yeah. I mean, I just drive my car sometimes just to go drive it.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I bought a 2018 WRX a while back, brand new, and that was one of those cars where I was like, hey, this is actually really fun to just drive. Like it would pull in fifth gear. I was like, oh, I'm so used to driving like lifted heavy cars. Like,
yeah,
let's go put some miles under these under this thing.
yeah, it'd be nice to have like a second car that was like a WRX or something just to, have something that's faster than a Crosstrek.
Yeah. Oh yeah. My daily driver's not fast. My Forester's not fast. They're just none of my cars are fast. The Jeep's on stock gears on 33s. That thing's not fast.
Yeah.
Like it'll climb a tree, but it's not going very fast down the road.
Yeah.
And if I do, I get speed wobbles.
Totally.
Um, Let me ask you about your just your modifications. I know this is kind of putting you on the spot a little bit, but what do you have as far as mods go?
So I have a full set of primitive skid plates, the, engine, transmission, and differential. I
Yeah,
have Rika VS Tetons that are satin black. Those are my wheels. I have Toyo Open Country AT3s, and then I have a Spider no drill roof rack. I have a Yakima tire carrier, so I've got my tire mounted up on the roof. I've
nice.
got an Anarchy Motive custom shift knob that says Pearl on it.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and then I have Morimoto fog lights, the three or four banger,
Yeah,
four banger
yeah.
fog lights, and then I have two banger ditch lights, and then I have what else do I have?
With
I
the
don't really
awning brackets.
Yeah, that's right. I have the Iron Man quick release brackets for the awning, which is really nice, and then the Yescom USA awning with the it's got a little LED light that you can put under there,
Yeah.
and then have I mean stuff that's not attached to my car, just kind of like accessory stuff. I have a Vi-Air pump or a
Yes.
air compressor for my tires,
Yeah.
and then I have a set of Go Treads, and then I have a oh, I also have in the engine compartment, I have the Melee Design Firm front tower brace for
Hmm.
the strut tower brace. I have the engine bay caps, and then I have, hold on a second, this that I am planning to mount this weekend, but I have my
Yes.
Melee Design Firm battery mount.
That's sick. Me, Mitch and I, we talk on almost a daily basis. Um, and anytime you come up, he's always like, "Oh man, he's like one of the best guys ever."
Yeah,
He's
I'd
got
say the same thing about him.
yeah, he's got nothing but positive stuff to say about you, man. He loves you. He loves your stuff, man. He's all about it.
Yeah,
Uh,
same here. I mean, he's been, he was my very first official sponsor of the podcast. And so he's been around, for a long time and
mhm.
really appreciate everything that he's done for the podcast. And I just
Yeah,
hope to meet him sooner than later.
I'm telling you. I know I already told you this, but anytime you want to come out to the area, like I said, I'm about halfway across the state. You
Okay.
know,
Yeah.
but I've got a third room here. I have a roommate, but there's a third room that we just keep music equipment in. You're welcome
Nice.
here anytime, man.
Right.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Like,
Sweet.
no worries. I'll even arrange to make sure you get picked up from the airport, or if you drive here, like whatever, man, we'll make it happen.
It would be so awesome to do like a West Coast tour, to be able to like just take 3 weeks and go drive out there and stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
I can work remotely, so
yeah, same.
thought about that because like I asked my bosses, I was like, if I wanted to go like on a long road trip, could I just work from the road, Because I mean that would be
Yeah.
kind of cool to like go to a spot and be there for like maybe 3 or 4 days and just work during the day and then go explore after work.
Hmm.
I mean, that'd be cool, and then have the weekends to go do stuff. But
Yeah. What not to get like up into your business too much or anything, like what kind of industry do you work in?
I'm a project manager for a small architectural and engineering firm.
Cool.
So what we do is there's these buildings, and it's a prototype building, so it's like already designed, but it's basically an oil change facility. It's a little
Mm,
three oil change facility where you drive in and stay in your car. It's called Take Five Oil Change. And so anyway, I'm responsible for coordinating with the city or whatever
hmm.
jurisdiction we're building it in, coordinating with all of the consultants, mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers, structural engineer, and then our in-house civil team, and just getting the project going and getting all the city permits and all that kind of stuff. So still learning because it's all new for me,
Yeah.
and but it's a lot of fun. And one of this girl that I work with, we used to work together at my old job. She left a year before I did, and
Okay.
she'd been trying to get me to come to this place, and now we're here, and it's a lot of fun working with her again.
That's rad. Yeah, that
Yeah.
stuff is way over my head. Like I have to work with a little bit of permit type stuff with the work that I do on occasion, but just like very minimal. And anytime that comes up, I'm like, oh gosh, I don't even want to think about this.
Yeah. It can be a lot of work. Some of them are
Yeah,
simple and some of them are complicated, but
yeah.
it, it can be, it's working this job. I'm so busy because like with my older job, the last 6 months to a year, probably it was like just sitting there doing the bare minimum. A
Hmm.
lot of times I was just sitting there with nothing to do. And because I would like finish all my work and I would need to talk to one of the project managers about other work, but they were
Hmm.
like conference
Busy.
calls all day and couldn't get through to them. And now I'm like so busy, like I can't even think. I used to do a lot more interaction with people during the day, but now I'm just so busy that I'm very limited.
Yeah,
And I haven't been as active with doing podcast stuff outside of just putting out the podcast, but it's kind of because I don't want to be sitting in front of a computer all day and then be sitting in front of a computer all night, you
Yeah.
know, or on my phone. So trying to, use the free time for me as much as possible. And not that I
Yeah.
don't care about the community anymore. I just, I gotta
Oh,
I gotta take care of myself. Yeah, I'll
with
be hitting some trails this weekend. So or
oh,
tomorrow actually. Yeah, I'm
where are you
excited.
going?
So there's a spot in Bastrop, which is out towards
Yeah.
Austin. And so there's this Highway 71, and then there's a Bucky's, which is across, there's like the Bucky's
Hmm.
like on this one side. And then on the other side of the highway, there was a neighborhood that was planned. So if you go to Google Maps, you can see like streets where like the houses are supposed to be on these streets, but they never ended up going through with the development.
Yeah.
So kind of considered public land, and
Okay.
some of it's public, some of it's private. But I mean, people have been going out there and driving off road, and it's
Okay.
got pretty gnarly spots too.
Sick.
Yeah. So I mean, there's some like spots that go pretty far down and then pretty far back up. And
Yeah.
being that it's out near Austin, and Austin and Bastrop area are kind of hilly, it's got some nice terrain changes.
Yeah.
But the only thing I don't like about it is it's really, really gravelly. So it's like even when you air down, it's really bumpy.
Hmm.
But it's okay. It's worth it.
Yeah. How do you how do you feel like the car does, even just with no lift with the Toyos? You feel like it's still pretty
Oh,
capable?
oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the Toyos. I've had them on. I think I took I think I put them on because I had Mayhems before
Hmm.
my Rikas, and I think I put the Toyos on at about 19,000 miles, and I still have the same ones on, and they still have quite a bit of tread left on them. So I think part of that might be because I hardly ever go off road, so they don't get beat up. But also, this is the first time I've ever rotated tires on a car on a consistent basis. I
Yeah.
never used to rotate tires before. And so I would just like, get them worn out on the front and be like, oh, I guess I'll just switch the ones to the front from the to the front. Yeah. But yeah, I've been consistently rotating my tires, and I mean, it seems like they still have quite a bit of tread left.
Yeah. Do you do it on a oil change basis or every two oil changes or?
Yeah, on them. So I do it about every 6,000 miles. I
Okay.
rotate tires.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I I had the AT2s before they released the tire that you have, and I bought mine with like used. They were already beat up. And I
Yeah.
couldn't believe how well that tire did. And I run mud trains on everything I own right now, but I may put some all terrains back on my Forester, and that's the tire that I would go with if I did that. I love them.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's like people really, really like the Wild Peaks,
Hmm.
and I've heard a lot of good things about them, but I like the Toyo so much that I don't see a reason to switch.
Yeah.
So
Do you have
yeah.
any road noise complaints with them or?
Yeah, there's road noise, but it doesn't bother me. Like I remember when
Yeah.
I first put them on, I was like, these things are kind of loud, but I love it because like when I started driving it and I heard the road noise from the tires, I'm like, now it sounds like a real rig.
Yes.
I like that.
Yeah.
It
It's
bothered me.
yeah, it's really funny how, like I'll be reading, because I do a lot of research on different tires and stuff. And I'll read through like reviews and comments on tires and people, like on the BFG KM3s, which is like one of the more aggressive mud terrains out there. People will be like, "Yeah, I put these on my Toyota, and they're so loud." It's like, what did you expect? It's a
Yeah,
mud terrain. They were way louder than my KO2s. It's like, what did you think they were gonna do? Oh well, people just have to adjust their expectations. But for like people like you and me, it's like, oh yeah, I like that. I actually wanted to ask about your spider no drill rack.
yeah.
That I have been seeing a ton of people running that rack. Can you talk a little bit about why you decided to run that rack? Um, I a lot of people they'll just run like the stock roof rails with some crossbars. But what was your motivation for doing an aftermarket rack and then specifically that one?
So I did have crossbars for a while, and I just had like ones that kind of, you've got your rail, and then it just like attaches to the side rail. The crossbar just goes like this on either
Yeah.
side, kind of bowed a little bit, and I had a basket on top of that. And so with the basket, there's only so much you can put up there. I had my tire up there, and then I had I had I mean, that was all I had was a tire. And
Okay.
I was trying to find a way to mount my awning, and I couldn't find a way to mount it on that basket or on the rails, but either the crossbars or the side rails. So there's this guy, Chris, he goes by Raven Trek, and he had these crossbars that have T slots in them, and then they
Mm,
stick out a little bit further. So he told me about those. I think it's like Bouge RV or something like that. So I
okay.
bought some of those, and I was able to put T slot. Oh, it has, well, with the T slots, I was able to mount some L brackets in there, and then I was able to mount my awning quick release from Iron Man, and then put my awning on there.
Okay.
So, but then with so part of the reason I did the Spider No Drill Roof Rack is because I had Tiger on the podcast last year, the year before, maybe it was in 2021,
Okay.
and then Soft Road Nation, they were like supporting Tiger, and they a lot of them were running his roof rack, and so uh it was almost a year after he had been on the podcast, but he sent me an email and said, I want to help sponsor the podcast by giving you a roof rack. And
Heck
so,
yeah.
okay.
Sick.
So he sent me a rack, and I mean, the only thing I have up there is my tire, but well, and
Mhm.
then the brackets for the awning.
Yeah.
But I eventually want to get like a cargo box up there so that I can put my go treads in there, so I can put some of my tools in there, so I can put my air compressor in there, and just get some of the stuff that's in my hatch out of there
Yeah.
and free up some space, and then just see what else I can put in there. But I want to get like a long box to put stuff in.
Hmm.
But yeah, I wanted it for more surface area up there to put things on there.
Yeah.
So
I think it looks like it gives you a lot more options. Just it looks like
yeah,
the entire thing can be mounted to
yep,
versus like, and
yeah.
it's
I mean,
way
just
low profile.
yeah, I mean, you have basically the whole surface area of the roof that you can mount stuff on. Because again, with the crossbars and the basket, I mean, you can get a longer basket, but it's also, you've got your side rails, then the crossbars, then the basket. So it's everything just gets
Comes up it.
up on top of each,
Yeah.
which I liked that look. And I was running the basket and the crossbars for so long that when I put the spider rack on, it looked weird,
Yeah.
because it was like sitting so low. And it's like I was so used to the other thing, and but now I really like it. It's low and it looks good and sleek. I mean, it's kind of like whenever I switched wheels, when I went from my Mayhems to my Rika wheels, I would go out to my car and I was like, oh yeah, I have new wheels. And so like they kind of surprised me like that for a long time, where I was like, it took a while to get used to seeing new wheels on my car, but I love the way they look.
Yeah. Oh, I think your setup looks good, man. And that roof rack, oh dude, it looks good.
Well, and I was going with the whole black and white theme.
Hmm.
So
Oh, I think you chose wonderfully.
that's for
Well,
my amber ditch lights and fog lights, but hey, that's what I want.
function over form, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Hey, I wanted to ask about the roof rack because you mentioned a kind of a little snafu that you had right when you right when you mounted it. Could you explain a little bit? You said you had a leaking problem, and could you give people, because you only do this once, you know what I mean? It's like you're not installing these every single day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about what you use to seal it up? Because that scares me a little bit, thinking about, you know,
Yeah.
having open holes in my roof.
So it's like it's a marine grade like
Like
silicone.
silicone? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's white. So so I was talking to this guy from Software Nation. He goes by Overlanding RT John.
Okay.
He was
Shout
telling,
out.
yeah, he was like, you need to put a lot on there. And then I was talking to Neil Skis, I think, too, and he was like, you got to put a lot on there. You're saying you have to put more than you think you need. And I thought I did
Yeah.
because so you take the OEM side rails off and you've got your and so there's because of the way the OEM side rails sit on top of the roof, there's these channels that
Hmm.
go right along underneath. So when you
Yeah.
take it off, there's these gaps now that are, pretty wide, and that's where the hole goes through the roof. So you have
Okay.
to like clean that out really good, get it nice and clean with cleaner and stuff, and make sure,
Alcohol.
yeah, make sure all the debris and everything is cleared out because you want it to be able to, get a good seal. So they said to put it around the hole
Hmm.
so that the spacer sits on top of the hole, but it's sitting on top of sealant basically,
Hmm.
and then put some around the spacer, and then put some on top of the spacer, and then put some down in the spacer. And so I did all that. So I had my spacers all sitting there with sealant under the spacers, around the spacers, on top of the spacers, inside the spacers. We set the rack on top. We pushed the bolts down through, and then ended up. Oh, and then so you have the bracket of the actual roof rack, and then your bolt goes down through the
Okay.
bracket. You got then you have a washer that goes on top of the bracket, and then the nut goes through the washer. So I put
Okay.
sealant under the washer. I mean, I had sealant everywhere.
Everywhere.
And then I don't remember if the first time I did it, if I put sealant inside underneath the roof rack. I think I did, and then put some on the threads of the bolt. But so I think I did most of the sealant on top. And so we get it all set in place and drive all the way up to Madison, Wisconsin. Everything's good. It hadn't rained at all since I first put it on. And then on my way home from Madison, Wisconsin, I'm looking in my, and I think what happened is I think I felt water drip on my leg.
Oh man.
And so you've got your headliner, and
Hmm.
then you have this the plastic piece that runs on your pillars up here.
A and B.
Yeah, and so I saw like the fabric of the headliner right where it meets the plastic pillar. It was damp, and it was like a little bit of water was dripping. I was like, "What the heck?" So I looked over on the other side, and the other side was dripping too. The passenger side, because when I left, I was hanging out with Jen, who goes by Ghost Extract. She's the one that
Okay.
these eccentric designs,
Yeah.
and with Patrick, Orbis Overlanding. So we're eating, we're having lunch, we're saying our goodbyes, and it's like raining pretty hard outside. And so, it was when I was driving home, I noticed it. So I pulled over into a gas station and under the canopy, and I got some paper towels, and I was just like trying to soak it up. And then I went because I think I'd gone into the back to get some shop towels that I had back there. And I noticed that the back ones were leaking too. Like the fabric was damp back there. I was like, what is going on? I'm like, this sucks. And it's raining. And so I'd stay under the canopy for a while, and then I drive because it like started to slow down, and then it starts raining again. So I'm like trying to find another gas station to park under. So my drive home, because this was the second leg of my trip, because I left Madison, Wisconsin, went to an Airbnb, stayed there in Arkansas, and then from there I was driving home. And so I was going like southwest,
Okay.
and and the highway that I was going down southwest in on the whatchamacallit, on the radar map on my phone,
Mm.
there's a huge storm hovering over the highway that I have to drive down to get home. It's red and dark green, and it's just like, and it's moving, but it just keeps redeveloping. like right over the highway. It's just
Yeah.
like, it's not like moving and then going past. It just
Yeah.
keeps circulating and just staying right on the highway. So so that's southwest. So then I start looking at routes that are going directly south and to the east of the storm. So I'm driving like trying to stay away from the storm. And as I keep going further south, the storm keeps moving further east towards me. And so like, I mean, I ended up pulling over at another gas station at one point, and I was like talking to my girlfriend. I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Like this thing is leaking. Like I don't want it to like I don't want to like just have all this water in my car by the time I get home.
Yeah.
So and this is I think this was on a Monday, maybe. And yeah, because I drove up there on Friday. I no, I drove started driving up there on Thursday, got there on Friday, stayed there. We camped out Friday night. Saturday was the event. Sunday I started to head home, and then the first day, and then Monday is my second day heading home. So I'm driving, and it was supposed to take me about like 9.5 hours to get home if I had just gone straight home. But I'm trying to avoid the storm. I'm stopping and staying under gas,
Oh
gas
man.
station canopies to try to stay out of the rain, considering sleeping, just sleeping in my car, at a gas station because I didn't want to get rained on. Start driving again, and it's raining, but it's not raining really hard. And I had a paper towel with me, and I kept checking like right up here,
The
the
pillar.
yeah, the pillar and the material right there. And it wasn't getting wet because I had dried it out pretty good. I put a paper towel like up inside because I took my pillars down and
Hmm.
put a paper towel like up inside and dried it out as best as I could. So I made it home. Took me over a little over 16 hours to get home.
Oh
And
no.
yeah, I mean, that's a long time to be driving home. I think I got home at like 2 a.m. or something like that, had to work the next day. I called up my cousin where I installed the rack, and I'm like, I gotta come over tonight. Like we have to like take it off and put it back on again. So get over there, loosen everything up, put more sealant around the spacers, and then put more sealant down inside the spacers. And then this time, when I put the bolts down through, I put sealant on top
Hmm.
of the bolts that were on top of the rack. And then up underneath, I put sealant around the metal where the bolt comes through the
Yeah.
roof. And then I put sealant around the bolt, and then I put the nut on, got it real tight, then put sealant around the nut. And I'm like, if this thing leaks now, I'm gonna freak out because I got so much sealant on this thing. So driving, I get home, park, doesn't rain for a while. Then it starts raining really hard one night, and I'm just like, oh, please, please, please.
Don't.
Stop my car, and it's leaking on the driver's side still. And I'm like,
No.
what the heck?
Oh
And
no.
so I just like, I had to just kind of keep an eye on it for a while, and it would rain and it would stop and it would rain. And so like, I don't know, like, and my car is parked out in the open. Like I don't have a canopy to park under. I don't have a
Hmm.
garage. So I'm at an apartment complex. So I'm like, it's just completely exposed. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. So my girlfriend came to town, and she was at an Airbnb that has a parking garage. And I'm like, I'm gonna go park it in the parking garage for a while. I'm gonna put
Yeah.
some more sealant around it, especially around the driver's side. And I just like put a crap ton around the
Yeah.
driver's side. And I put more around all the others too. And I just let my car sit there for a while because and under in the parking garage so that it could dry some. And ever since then it's been fine.
Good.
But
Good.
yeah, I mean, I was like kind of regretting it at some point, like, why did I do this, man? This is, and
Yeah.
it's not the rack, there's no fault in the rack or anything. It's just, you've got to put enough sealant in there and maybe even just the right way. Cause I've seen some that don't have as much sealant as I do. And
Yeah.
there's it's just the way that maybe that they put it on somehow. I don't know, but
Yeah.
straight
Hey, real quick, I just wanted to jump in and make it very clear that this section right here about the Spider No Drill roof rack was not in any way to deter people from using that product. In fact, I think people should check out those roof racks. I would actually like to get one myself. But instead, what I was aiming for, he had told me a little bit about his situation of needing to use more sealant. And I wanted to bring that up so that people who may be in the market for, a modular roof rack like that, if they buy one and they have to, do the drilling, or if they go with this rack that doesn't require the drilling and have to do the sealant, that they just know maybe go a little bit overboard what you think is appropriate for the silicone sealant, just so that you don't end up with the same type of a situation. Anyways, just want to make that clear. And the people over at Spider No Drill Roof Rack, they actually sponsor the Subie You Podcast. So I'm super grateful for them to, be contributing to the Subaru community. And with that, let's keep going.
That's good info because, that's always been the most helpful thing to me is when I can look at, like, if there's something I want to do, if I can go look and learn from somebody else's experience, it's, it's nice for people to be like, okay, so I really do need a lot of silicone if I'm going to have exposed.
Yeah. And as far as like the installation itself, I found, because Tiger has some YouTube videos on how to do it and stuff, but there was a Prinsu rack installation for a Crosstrek, which is basically the same thing. The only difference is you don't drill the holes through the roof.
Yeah.
Like Prinsu rack. But other than that, it did a really good job of showing everything that you need to like take out of the inside, which is a lot of work.
Yeah, the headliner's got to come down, right?
Yeah. I didn't know what that meant exactly until I watched it.
It's daunting. It's a little daunting, but no, that's cool that you did that though. Most, when I first got into cars, I was scared even to change oil. But
it was intimidating, but then once I started doing it, and my son was helping me with
yeah.
And so that was cool because we were doing that together. But yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of work, a lot of busted knuckles and sore, but it was worth it.
Yeah, no, that's half the fun. Another thing I wanted to ask you about, I know this is obviously covered in the article, but can you talk, I know we mentioned that you're running the AT3s from Toyo. Can you talk about the size of tire that you're running? And obviously I already know your answer to this, but if you could just tell people what your experience has been with fitting that tire into the car. That's probably the most asked question on any of the groups is, will this tire fit in my car?
Yeah, so I've got a 215 70R 15 because I've got 15-inch wheels. So the 215s, they fit perfect with no lift. And then if you go to the 225, I think I've heard people say that with the 225, if you turn and go full steering wheel lock, like when you're going in reverse, you'll get a little bit of rubbing, but other than that, it doesn't rub. And then that's with no lift. And then if you try to go 235s with no lift, forget about it.
Yeah.
But then you're going to rub and it's not going to go anywhere probably.
Yeah, I've heard that they rub on the fender liner, which I guess you can kind of massage them out of the way with a heat gun.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe you shouldn't do that, but I definitely have.
Your fenders on.
Yeah. Let's see, are you running 215/75 or 215/70?
I think they might be 75s.
Okay.
You know what? Let me look on the tire because I don't remember exactly.
I don't either. I don't know if I have a close-up photo of your tire size.
I do in here somewhere.
Oh, sick. Okay. Let's see. Darn, I don't have it.
I think it is 75.
Okay.
But let me double check.
And that, I think that tire size is actually real close to the overall diameter of your stock.
Yes.
Tires.
When I think I had like one of my, I guess maybe it was my spare mounted, and I put it up next to my
Toyo.
When I had my Toyos mounted on my Mayhems, I think I stood it up next to my stock wheels and tires because I still had those.
Mm-hmm.
Stock wheels are 17s. So let's see. Yeah, they're 75s. You're right.
Okay, perfect.
75. Yeah.
Okay, I thought I wasn't sure if I had put the wrong thing down because I had it in my head that you were running 75s, but yeah, it's nice to get a little more sidewall and then not have to worry about your speedometer being off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you experience like a, a pretty significant change in I mean, obviously our Subarus are not, they're not sports cars, but did you notice any serious difference? Even though it's the same diameter, you've technically got a lot more, of the tire, and you got more metal, steel bands in there and all that stuff. Did you feel like it weighed the car down and killed the gas mileage a little bit, or what
Not really too much. And I mean, my gas mileage before I put anything on was like right around 30 on the highway. And then my average was, I mean, I think my average was actually up around 30 according to the car.
Yeah.
And then now it's gone as low as like 23, and now I'm back up to like 26.
Okay.
Isn't too bad.
Do you think, because I know how it is, you start modding and then you just keep going and it's hard to like get a baseline for what caused what. But do you think it was the tires, or do you feel more wind resistance with having a spare up on top, or?
Yeah, I mean, I can hear it, but I mean, like because I had my basket on, I think, before I had wheels and tires, or maybe I don't know, maybe I got the wheels and tires first. So, I mean, but I think I got the basket pretty soon after the wheels and tires. So, if there was a difference as far as like what it was saying my mileage was, then it was, it was not, it was kind of gradual, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel like it drives too much different. I mean, it's been so long since I've had the stock wheels and tires on.
Yeah. That's the thing is it's always, you just start moving and then you don't stop. It's like you just keep going with new stuff. You're like, oh, I want to get this. Oh, now I want to get that. And then it's hard to remember what your baseline was for it.
Yeah.
Unless you were for some odd reason taking notes or something.
I mean, there's people that have like a pretty good list of all the mods and when they did them and, stuff that happened because of it or whatever.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I wish I was more organized like that, but I'm not. What, you mentioned, because I'm always curious, like what people's future plans are for the car. And, I think you wrote that you wanted to do like a rear tire carrier at some point. Any ideas of what you would want to do?
No, I mean, because like it's an issue of money, and so like
Yeah, tell me about it.
I don't need it, so
Yeah,
it's not like a priority, and so like I have other stuff that I need to spend money on,
yeah, like
It's,
adult stuff.
yeah, I have a kid, I have a son,
Yeah,
and but yeah, so it's not anything that I've researched. I mean, I think if I were to do something, it would probably be, like a hitch with a rear tire carrier,
yeah,
but you lose a little bit of ground or a departure angle with that because you've got it sticking out of the back.
yeah.
So there's a trade-off. And what's nice, and I didn't notice it until I was really looking at my friends because they have an Ascent, but the
Mhm.
way that the trailer hitch is set up on the Ascent is it doesn't go underneath. It's
Yeah,
like in the
straight
middle of
out.
and I'm like, well, that makes
Yeah,
sense. Y'all suck. Y'all don't lose any
yeah,
departure angle. Yeah, but
yeah.
the only other thing that I would want to do would be like Milton Silver Bullet XV. He's got I think it's F44 is a brand,
Mm-hmm.
but
The bumper.
yeah, he cut his bumper, and the way his bumper is set up is his tire carrier is mounted to his bumper, and
Yeah,
then it's offset to the right so
S-
that he can, so it swings out and it's not centered, it's over to the side a little bit.
Yeah.
He was showing me how easy it swings because it's mounted on the bumper and it doesn't wiggle or anything. And that would be like ideally the way to do it, but I don't think I would ever cut my bumper.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to go to you got to go to like, you pull it or something and just pray
Yeah.
that there's a bump, a Crosstrek with a clapped out bumper and just take it.
Yeah.
Like, let me just have this on backup or I'll cut this one.
I mean, one of the things that I like about having my bumper too is because I have the rear reflector,
Oh yeah.
rear reflectors at the bottom. I
Hmm.
have the shape of Texas,
Yeah.
in my decal, and I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Uh,
saw that. That's sick. So
Jen from Eccentric Designs did those for me.
dude, she's got some cool stuff. Yeah.
Oh,
She's
yeah,
rad and she's a hustler, man. Like listening to her on your podcast is
yeah,
impressive, because I've got a lot of stuff going on with the full-time job and all that, but she's managed to like I can't imagine she's not working 60 or 70-hour weeks.
she works a lot.
Yeah, she's crushing it. Yeah, shout out to Jen,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah,
Yeah, she's a boss.
yeah,
Uh, hey, I noticed something. Are you running easy flares?
I am. Oh yeah, I
Okay,
forgot about that. Yeah,
cool. I noticed that in the photo. I was running those for a long time on my Forester, and then they got torn off in a mud pit. But those look, yeah,
yeah,
those look really good.
yeah.
How?
My buddy. It's a funny story about those because my buddy Jay, who goes by Audiophile,
Okay.
he he had an extra set and he sent them to me. And I had them for about a year before I put them on. And he was like, dude, are you ever going to put those things on? And because like I was looking at the instructions, and the instructions say to like heat up the fender with a hair dryer so that you can get it nice and warm so that the adhesive will stick well.
Hmm.
It's like, dude, you live in Texas. You don't have to go out there and heat it up. Just put them on in the middle of the day. They're going to be. And so I was like, that's a good point. So, like, I think it was like the next day I went out there and it had been, it was dry, it hadn't been raining, and it was really hot outside. So I went and cut them and put them on, and they've been on. And they actually, Easy Flare has actually sent me another set of like beefier ones that they
Yeah.
have, but I haven't put those on yet. So
Okay. Oh, nice. Yeah, I think they look good. They look clean enough to where they
yeah.
don't look. There's some options out there that people were using in the past that looked really bad.
Well, the thing I was worried about is so when I got my wheels and tires, what I really liked is because of the offset of the wheel and everything,
Hmm.
you've got your stock wheel and tire and they're like this, and
Yeah.
then got your fender, which is kind of over the tire. And so your tire and your wheel are like kind of underneath and inside
Yeah.
the wheel or the wheel well. But then you put those stock or the aftermarket wheels and tires and it pushes it out a little bit. So
Hmm.
tire sticking outside of the fender a little bit. And I'm like, oh my God, it looks so awesome.
Yeah.
Love that look. And
Until it rains.
well, no, I mean, it's like, so the wheels and tires are, they stick out a little bit and it looks fine. Like, and I love the way it looks. It makes it look more aggressive, but it wasn't like real obvious, it was subtle, like
Yeah.
just barely pushed out. And then I was worried, like, if I put these easy flares on, is it going to give it that look again where the wheels look like they're tucked underneath too far? But it didn't. So,
Oh, yeah. I think it looks great because there's, yeah, it's almost like if they look sunken in past like the sheet metal, that's where you start to notice it. But yeah, even with the flares on, because I'm looking at it right now, it looks so good. I
yeah.
love it. I think I think you've done a really good job of making something that's very tasteful, but that has all the stuff that you would really want.
Yeah. I mean, and because of where I live and because of, I don't have a lot of places to go out to, and I don't really have a lot of time to go out to places either. I mean, my build is kind of where I want it to be right now with as
Yeah.
far as, the look. Like, I think the only other thing that I would want to get, like I said, would be a rooftop cargo box just to put some of the stuff
Yeah.
inside, inside that are inside the car. But other than that, I mean, unless, I just like came into a lot of money, then
Yeah.
one of the things that you get asked was about,
Yeah.
would I ever get a lift? And I totally want a lift, but they're pricey and I don't need a lift. So there's no need to spend the money on it. If I was going out off-roading a lot and there were spots that I was like that I wanted to go to that I knew that I couldn't get to unless I had a lift, then that'd be one thing. If I lived in Washington or Colorado or, California
Yeah.
or something, then that would be something to consider. But I'm on the pavement like 98% of the time. And
Yeah.
so no need for one. But this Crosstrek looks so good with the lift.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I just had that extra money to just blow, I would go do it just
Yeah.
because of the way it looks.
Well, they're already capable right out of the gate.
If you wanted to just like go off road a little bit more and just have better traction, you can just get all-terrain tires on your stock wheels and you'd be fine. I mean, if you're not going to be doing anything hardcore,
Yeah.
and that would change the look of your car, a little bit, and would look good. Because I know a lot of people that have done that. They've gotten all-terrains and put them on their stock tires, and then they're like, oh, but what if I want to get a different wheel size later? Then I got to get tires,
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you have to keep that into consideration is if you were gonna, like, for me, I could have gotten all-terrain tires and put them on my stock wheels, but I wanted 15-inch wheels because I saw a lot of other people doing that because of more sidewall, so that
Mhm.
when you tear down, you've got more sidewall to go off road. And so I'm like, okay, well, that makes sense. So I already knew that I wanted to get 15-inch wheels, so there was no point in me getting all-terrain tires for my 17-inch stock wheels when I knew I was going to get other wheels.
Yeah. That's another thing that, because I'm usually pretty active in the lifted Subie groups, and people ask that question all the time. I'm like, hey, are you going to upgrade wheels? Because if so, save your $1,000. Just
Yeah.
wait 3 months to when you're planning to get your different wheels and
Yeah.
do it that way. You kind of have to think ahead a little bit.
Yeah, now if you have like a Forester or an Outback or an Ascent that has larger wheels and you can't
Yeah.
really go down to a 15-inch wheel, and you know that you're going to stick with another 17-inch wheels, like, because if you're going to get a lift to get you up a little bit higher and you know that you're probably going to stick with 17-inch wheels, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a tough call
Yeah.
because you can get a little bit bigger tires if you've got a lift, and then you can get the wheels later. But if you don't have a lift, there's no need in getting bigger tires if they're going to rub and stuff. But
Yeah. Yeah. And then,
considering what your future plans are.
yeah. And sometimes like I'll tell people, like, just go out there with a tape measure. Like, how much room do you actually have between your brake calipers and your wheels? Like, if you're running a 19 on your Ascent, do you have like 2.5 inches? Like, if so, yeah, you can drop down to a
Yeah.
17, especially if it's a rally wheel, because then you got even more space.
So
But
what is it? What is it that would, or what is the issue with the caliper? Would the tire then be rubbing on it if you go down? Because I don't. I've heard people say that, but I don't know the reason.
Yeah, do you know what a brake caliper is?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I just don't know why people say that, like, that's an issue depending on like tire size and wheel size and everything. So where does the problem come into play?
yeah. So the barrel of the wheel, if
Yeah.
it's too small, it will literally rub on the caliper. Like when you
Okay.
put the wheel on, the wheel won't actually clear it. Some people will cut it close.
See what you're saying. So then, like, I guess you could get like an offset then to push your wheel out a little bit
Yeah.
if you want to go with if you want to go with a smaller wheel. So then you
Yeah.
can get the caliper. Okay, now it makes sense. I
And
was wondering why that was an issue, because I guess if you've got your caliper and you've got a bigger wheel and
Mhm.
your wheel's going over the caliper, but then
yeah.
once bam.
Well, you know what's funny is some people will literally take a grinder and just cut their
Oh my
like
God.
because if
The
it
outside part of the caliper
yeah,
off.
if it's close, you can make it work. You do get to a point where it's like, hey, you probably shouldn't take that much off because there's actual fluid right there. Um, but people, brands like Rika, Method, Black Rhino, Motegi, all those companies, they actually um, they make like the barrel, even though they accommodate like a 15-inch tire, they actually engineer the wheels themselves to fit over as big of a brake as possible.
Yeah.
Like I think the MR502s that everybody runs, those got popular because they're made to fit over like the WRX4 pots. It's crazy. Like when you move away from stock, you do have some more options, but it's a little iffy sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm so pumped on your stuff and your podcast. Like anytime a new one comes out and I'm at the gym working out, I'm like, yes, I got something to listen to. Can you explain a little bit about what prompted you to start it, and then just maybe a little bit about your journey with it?
So when I bought my Crosstrek, I I started connecting with some people because I was already following a few accounts with my personal account. And then I'm like, maybe I should start up an account, with my car.
Yeah.
It seems kind of silly, and I was wasn't sure about it at first, but I was like, oh, what the heck? And because again, I wasn't really planning on doing anything with my car. And so I started up my account, and then the more I started connecting with people, I'm like seeing people doing like Tushy Tuesday and Wheel Wednesday and Front End Friday. I'm like, these people are weird.
And now
You
you always have Wheel Wednesdays. I love it.
Yeah, so I was like, these people are weird, like doing all these like Tushy Tuesday, and but then you see a lot of people that list their mods, and I was like, that's really cool, they're showing what they have on their car, and this was before Reels became a big thing,
Mhm.
and people were doing some videos, but so I was thinking like with Instagram, you can post photos, you can put a caption, but you really can only tell so much of a story with that. I mean, of course they say like pictures are worth 1,000 words, but yeah, I mean, it's great. Like you can see where people are going and stuff. But then I thought, what if people would be interested in actually talking about what they're doing with their Subaru, where the places that they're going, if they like to go camping, and then, why they decided to buy a Subaru and why that specific model and stuff. And so I just started thinking like about, you know, the kinds of things that people are doing with their Subarus that I was just observing on Instagram. It's like, what if people could tell more of a story than what they're able to share on Instagram with just pictures and a few words? And so I started reaching out to a few people, but like just kind of asking people like what they thought about the idea. But Jen was the first person I had on, obviously.
Yeah.
I had bought a few of her decals. We started talking a lot. We were becoming really good friends. And she was helping me like kind of thinking of like logo stuff and everything and like how to design the front cover. And I was like, would you be interested in being my first guest? And she said she wasn't sure at first. She's like, I'm really shy. I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah.
And so eventually convinced her to do it. I think it was just talking and getting to know each other more that made her decide to do it. And so, got her on, and it kind of blew up from there. But I mean, my thought was like, I was just hoping that people would like it, and think it was a good idea. And I was more thinking about like what people can do who are on the podcast, like what they can share. I wasn't really thinking about like how is the community going to take it. Like I said, I was just hoping a few people would like it. And now people are like, it's like what I do every Monday. I listen to the podcast, and
Yeah.
so it's like really cool to hear that it's a big part of people's lives now. Like they're looking forward to the next Monday to see who's going to be the next guest.
Yeah.
And so my journey with it has been really cool because it's opened up a lot of doors. I've had Subaru of America sponsoring the podcast through the gear store.
Yeah.
Rika Wheels sponsors the podcast. They're actively sponsoring the podcast right now. Melee Design Firm
Shout
was
out.
was my
Yeah.
very first sponsor. So, Mitch was like, "Hey, I want to help you out," and then you know, Primitive Racing kind of sponsored it a little. In a way, they gave me a full set of skid plates.
Sick.
Yeah, I mean, Subaru reached out to me on June 30th of 2021. I got a message from this woman. Gosh, why am I drawing a blank? Lauren. She
Okay.
sent me a message through Instagram. It was like, "Hey, this is Lauren with Subaru, and have some ideas we want to run by you, and send me an email, and we can start talking." And so I was like, "Did this just happen? Did Erica really just reach out to me?"
Yeah.
And so we just started talking, and that's when they, said, "Hey, we want to bring you out to an event." And they flew me out to Boxer Fest in 2021 and got to meet Bucky Lassick there for the first time and meet a bunch of Subaru people and had like VIP access, got a ride along with Bucky in an S209.
Yes.
Yeah. And then, and I was still so new in the community back then too, that like all of that being there at Boxer Fest, meeting Bucky, getting a ride in the S209, like all these different things, like they really, because I hadn't been a Subaru fan and like didn't really know much about Subaru until I bought my car, that was like, I think it had been like maybe a year since I had bought my car, and I had only been doing the podcast for about 9 months, which is a pretty decent amount of time. But even then, like all of that wasn't that big of a deal because
Yeah.
I didn't know a whole lot about it. Like I didn't all I knew of Bucky was that I remember watching him skate in X Games.
Yeah.
That's what I remembered of him. And
Yeah.
I didn't even like follow his career or anything. I just remembered, oh yeah, I remember seeing him skate in X Games, but I wasn't like, like, oh my God, it's Bucky Ladd.
Yeah.
And so like it wasn't, it's not until now that all of these things, everything that I've learned, all these people that I've learned more about, that like now everything is a big deal. Like, you know, now when I think about Bucky, I'm like, he's like a big deal,
Yeah.
because I know so much more about him. I know what he's done. I know how much he means to people. I know like how big he is in the skateboard community. I know how big he is in the Subaru community. When I met him, I didn't know all of that. And
Hmm.
so, it wasn't like I wasn't like freaking out, like, oh my God, that box
Yeah.
is, you know. So, and then last year, they flew me out to Subie Fest, California, and they set me up with a podcast or with a basically like a 3-sided tent. I brought all my podcast gear and I got to record with people there. And that was really cool because like then it was a little bit more of a big deal. Like
Yeah.
I'm here because of Subaru of America and they're setting me up and they're giving me this opportunity to record with people here at this event. And one of the scariest things being there was I talked to Charles from Subaru, and when we first got there and we were walking around before the gates opened up, he was like, later on we can go up and I can introduce you to the DJ, and maybe he can do a little interview with you. And I was kind of like, okay, but then like when the time came, it was like lunchtime, it was a little afternoon. Hey, so you want to go up and go get something to eat over here? And so I was hanging out, talking to people and stuff, and then ended up meeting up with Charles again. He was like, "All right, well, let's go up to the DJ booth and introduce you to the DJ." And the DJ booth was on top. They had like this big trailer, and the DJ booth was on top of the trailer. So it's
Okay.
like dated up above everybody, like 12 feet up. And so I'm walking up there, and he introduced me to the DJ, and I'm looking down. There's like all these people out there. This is kind of in the Subaru area, so it's not like everybody in the event was standing out there, and it's not like everybody was just hanging outside the DJ booth listening to him the whole time because he had loud, speakers all around the event so that everybody
Hmm.
could hear him say. So we sit down and he starts asking me all these questions, like, "Hey, how'd you come up with the podcast? And who are some of the people you've had on and this and that?" And I mean, we sat down for probably like 5 minutes with him asking me all these questions. And then he goes, all right, awesome. Now let's do that again, but on the mics. And I'm just like, oh my God. I've always had stage fright. Like I've always hated being in front of people and speaking.
Same.
So I'm like, I'm about to be in front of all these people getting interviewed by this DJ. I'm like, I have to be on. Like I can't be like, you know.
Yeah.
So I just kind of like got into this, the mode of like this is happening. So I
Yeah.
grabbed the mic and he starts asking me questions. And thankfully, where we were standing, I could see my podcast tent down there. And so people that had been hanging out with me throughout the day, they were standing down there. And so that's what I was focused on. I was looking at them as I was answering questions. And I was going back and forth between looking at them and looking at the DJ. And then like, as I would go back and forth, I would kind of scan the crowd, just kind of like see if people were looking up and like, oh my God, are people looking at me? So, but I mean, I feel like I did a really good job getting, being up there in front of everybody, but having people that I was hanging out with down there to kind of focus on. And then again, the DJ like really helped to just kind of keep everything else out of my head, you know? So yeah, it went fine.
Well, I don't know how much editing you do, but like I feel like you're really well spoken, in the podcast. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. And
I've come a long way too, because I mentioned to you off air that I used to do another podcast.
Mhm.
And so I go back and I listen to that podcast and I'm like, man, I kind of sucked back then. Like, it's like, I wasn't at the level that I'm at now. And I mean, my podcast equipment wasn't as good. My editing skills were not as good. Like I listened to a lot of the things that I would say and like mouth noises and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, it's a lot different now.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to commend you, man, because I don't know, with the website stuff, I just saw like an opening in the internet that wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like thousands of people that are more knowledgeable than me. And so I guess sometimes, I don't know if you're familiar with the term like imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
But like, that's kind of how I feel occasionally, but it's like, okay, at the same time though, like you were so new to the community and, you just like went for it. There's thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that could have done this years ago, but you were the first one that actually picked it up and said, hey, I'm new to this. I don't give a fudge. I'm going to run with it. And like, now look at it. So I just want to commend you and like say, like I appreciate like everything that you've done to just bring people from all over the country, from all the different corners of the Subaru community,
I mean, I deal with imposter syndrome all the time because I'm still so new to the community. There's still so much I don't know. Sometimes I feel like, how am I, somebody that doesn't know a whole lot? Like, I didn't even know who Lance Smith was, when I bought my Subaru. I didn't know who he was until like after it was Vic from Mountain Roo told me. We started chatting on Instagram, and he told me about launch control and watched a few episodes. That's the other thing too. I think I'd watched like 4 episodes of Launch Control. There was 8 seasons out. I think I had watched 4 episodes before I recorded with Warwick Patterson, and I'm like, how am I going to have this guy, who's the co-creator of this 8-season show? How am I going to interview this guy? And I've only watched like 4 episodes, but I mean, it turned out to be a pretty good job because, I don't think I had to have really watched it so much as, I guess I just asked the right questions. And then like 2 days after I announced put out his episode, Christopher Bose, who's the other co-creator, he messaged me on Instagram. He was like, hey, are you going to have me on too? Yeah, sure. Let's do it. And so I interviewed him, and then when they were releasing season 10, they reached out to me and were like, hey, we want to be on the podcast again and talk about season 10. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? Like, well, like that they reached out to me and they wanted to be on, like that was like one of the biggest honors is
Hmm.
them to say, hey, we want to be on the podcast again. And so, and it was cool because I got to talk to both of them at the same time, with that interview, whereas before I did each of them individually. But yeah, and then like having Lance Smith on, it was like I know hardly anything about rally and rallycross, and I'm interviewing like the master of
Yeah,
rally. Like this guy's been in the rally community for a long time.
like
He
20
started
years.
yeah, more than that. And he started Vermont Sports Car. He's the team cap or the team principal for Subaru Motorsports USA, and I know almost nothing about rally, and here I am interviewing this rally king,
Yeah,
and then having Rihanna and Gelsomino on, like I didn't know a whole lot about her career. I didn't know a whole lot about Travis Pastrana. I didn't
hmm,
know and still didn't know that much about rally, but yeah, I mean, people say they really enjoyed the episode. So, I mean, I do some research, before I have people on so that I feel more prepared. Otherwise, I think it would sound really bad.
well, it's um, I kind of look at everything in life the way that um, I look at business. And if you're going to start a
Mhm.
business, the thing that you have to think is, how do I help people? Like, what can I do to help people? And I feel like when I look at your podcast, I look at it the same exact way. Like, all you're doing is literally helping people. Like, you're helping connect people. You're helping people, share their experience. And yeah, you're just
Yeah.
connecting people from all over and putting information out there. Because I know there's tons of people that are new to the Subaru community who've listened to your podcast and have gotten all sorts of insight, and encouragement from it.
Well, and it's nice too because then they can get connected with a lot more people because there's people that will find the podcast because somebody they follow was on the podcast and put
Yeah,
it in their stories, and you're like, oh, this person that I chat with is on a podcast. What is this podcast? And
yeah,
then they follow it and they'll send me a message, be like, I just found your podcast, man. Thank you so
yeah,
much for so cool. So if that person that they're following was on the podcast and they end up going through the episodes, they'll end up
more
probably
people.
connecting with a lot of people that they didn't know about.
Hmm.
So that's another cool aspect of the podcast. But
Yeah,
it, it's it's uh it's been a cool journey and it's been a lot of fun and I'm thankful for all the people that I've met. And it's been pretty vulnerable at times with
yeah,
me and my guests. And so it's turned into so much more than just people talking because my original thought was like having people come on and talk about their mods and talk about places that they go and why they bought their Subaru. And then now so many people talk about how their Subaru and how the community has changed their lives and how it's touched their lives and how it's impacted their life and
hmm,
how they all these friends and how they so you get to hear so much of the human aspect of what why people enjoy being part of this community so much and just having their car because the car itself brings so much joy and meaning into everybody's lives. And then having the community in addition to something that you already enjoy having in your life, it's just like makes it even better.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely an honor to be sitting down talking to you, man. Like,
Well, I'm like honored that you reached out to me to have me on the website. So that was
oh,
cool.
no, man. I actually wanted to reach out to you a long time ago, and I was like, he's probably a busy dude. Probably wouldn't, I'd probably be hassling him. And just so everybody knows, anybody that's watching this guy stayed up till like 3:30 in the morning replying to all the questions I had about his car. And if you haven't checked out the article, go do it right now. But
Yeah.
this dude is a killer.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, there's still so much more I would love to be able to do. It's just again, like I mentioned earlier, I sit in front of a computer all day long and I spend, the way like a day in the life of the podcast guy. So I have my son with me every other week.
yeah,
So he's with me and he's with me like usually Monday night or Tuesday through the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, Monday through Sunday. So when he's with me, I try not to do any work outside of
Yeah.
work because, I want to be able to him to have time with me and me to have time with him, especially now because this is his last year in high school. And, I don't want to be like busy and working and doing stuff and
Look
like,
at
sorry,
this guy,
I-
dude. I
you
can't
know,
believe you have kids in high school and college, man.
my daughter's already graduated. She's married now.
Whatever you've been eating, whatever your secrets are, forward them over to me.
I'm vegan.
Yeah,
So
killing
yeah.
it. I might have to take that up, man.
But so, when I'm with my son is with me, I don't want to do anything while he's here. Like I take the time when he's in the shower to like edit, maybe work on questions and stuff. But when he's with me, I try not to do any work. There have been times when I've recorded when he's with me only because like I had scheduled to record with somebody when my son like wasn't supposed to be here, like he was going to be with his mom, and then he ended up not being with his mom for whatever. Or if it was somebody that I'd been trying to schedule the week that he wasn't with me, and then they had to reschedule, and like the only time they could do it was when my son was with me. So,
Yeah,
and then when he leaves, then I go to work on Monday. I go to the office every Monday, and I don't get home sometimes till like 6:30. So I try not to do anything Monday night except for usually I'll try to connect with my patrons and have a little voice chat on Patreon or I mean on Discord. So Monday I just kind of like I've been at the office all day, drove to work, drove home, like I kind of want to just chill. So then I have Tuesday and Wednesday as pretty much my days to record because lately, since my girlfriend lives in Dallas, I've been trying to spend more time with her. So I
mm-hmm.
usually leave on Thursday night to go spend the weekend with her and then come back Sunday night and then start the process all over again. So my time frame of like really being able to do stuff is Tuesday and Wednesday every other week.
Yeah,
So I mean, again, I could put in more time, but it would be taking time away from, my family, my girlfriend and my son, but also that takes time away from me too.
yeah,
Now, and my son is out of high school, he goes off to school. If he goes off to school, my goal and my plan is to move up to Denton, which is a little bit north of
yeah,
where my son lives, and
yeah. Danton.
yeah, live there for about a year so that we can kind of, transition and then eventually move in. But, when I don't have my son every other week, it's going to open up a lot more time for me to do more stuff.
Yeah,
And, and when I'm closer to my girlfriend and it's a lot easier to see her and she's only like 30 minutes away, then that's going to open up more time for me too.
yeah,
So, for now, I'm okay just doing the podcast and trying to do a little bit more. Because I mean, again, I would love to be able to like maybe put together YouTube videos of just different random things, not
mhm.
necessarily a video of the podcast, but just do stuff for, like, I mean, there's been times when I'm thinking like, I need to like do a Instagram live and just like say hi to people and stuff. But I think about it like when I'm driving or something, or I think about it when I'm, yeah, I'm never like, I don't ever think about it when I'm sitting at home and I'm not doing anything. But then again, when I'm sitting at home not doing anything, I'm not doing anything, I'm usually like
Mhm.
recording or working on questions or editing or something. So
Yeah. Well, I think it's super commendable just the amount of emphasis you put on family, and I think um, like I said before, I've never heard anybody talk about you in a way that's not just like 110% positive. Like
yeah.
like, yeah, we'd love to see and hear like way more material from you, like from the podcast, but like everybody absolutely loves you. And like the fact that you're, making a point to spend time with your son for the, a little bit of time, that he still got left as being, a kid,
Yeah.
like everybody respects that. I know I can't imagine a single person doesn't understand where you're coming from.
But I'm thankful that he still wants to spend time with me too.
Yeah.
You know, which is good. You know, I mean, like it's funny because like he doesn't really want to go out to events and like when we have car meets and stuff. Like I would rather go by myself. Not that I don't want him with me, but he knows that like if I'm at this event, I'm trying to talk to people, then he tries to talk to people because he's not like, oh yeah, like I want to go meet all these people, and because
Yeah.
he's kind of quiet, shy, and everything. So he would rather just have time with me, and so going to events and stuff, it's like, I don't want to do that to him. I don't want
Yeah.
to like him in a situation where he's like not going to enjoy going. So,
Yeah.
there's times when I don't go to events because he's with me, and I'd rather go to an event by myself so that I can just talk to people and not have to worry about like, keeping up with him. But I mean, he and I do spend a lot of time together. So, and I mean, he's been blessed, because of all of this. I mean, we went out to Colorado, and when we went out there, we met up with Juan and Chris,
Yeah.
and Chris goes by Shadow Rue. Juan used to go by Java Wagon
Till he betrayed us.
Oh yeah, but my son, like, we were hanging out, and Juan let my son drive Java Wagon. Chris let my son drive Shadow Rue, and
That's sick.
yeah, they were in the passenger seat with him, but they were letting him drive. And then, like, when we were getting ready to leave the park, we were all just kind of hanging out in this area. And I think my son asked him if he could drive Java Wagon again, and Juan just tossed him the keys. He's like, "Yeah, just go drive around." My son was driving Java Wagon around by himself.
Dude,
So
Juan is cool.
yeah, for a 14-year-old kid to be able to, I don't, of course, my son did. I mean, I know he really enjoyed it, but I don't think he realized like what a big deal that was because like so many people love Java Wagon. They're like, man, it's like
Yeah.
such a sick Outback, and
Yeah.
but so I feel blessed that I was able to give that experience to my son and to my daughter. But then because of all this and getting to know Bucky and having that connection, we had an event called Banger in the Hangar back in 2021. And there's a Houston vert ramp here in Houston. And this guy has some property. Somebody told him that they were going to decommission this vert ramp. So he said, all right, I want to buy it. He bought this vert ramp. They tore it down, put it back together on his property, and he started in 2020. He started the first ever Banger in the Hangar. So then 2021, they did Banger in the Hangar as a second year. Found out Bucky was going to be there, so
Sick.
I took my son. They had Bucky Elastic was there. There was all these people from all over the world that flew in to this event. I mean, there was like people from over in Europe that were at this thing. Kids and older people that had been skating for a long time. And so I got to introduce my son to Bucky, and Bucky had some of his boards there with the big tortoise on it. So I bought one of his boards, got Bucky to sign it for my son, and now my son is skating that board. And but it's cool that he got to meet him. I got a picture with him, and we're sitting there, and my son was like, "Oh, there's Tony Hawk." And Tony Hawk showed up at the event too.
What?
Kids were going up there and taking like quick selfies with Tony Hawk. And I told my son, I was like, and my son was usually like shy about stuff, but I was like, hey, go up there and get a picture with Tony Hawk. And
Yeah.
he did, like, he got up right away. He got up there and he's got a picture with Tony Hawk.
That's sick.
So we got to see Tony Hawk and Bucky and some other people skate, because I remember, like I said, the only thing I knew of Bucky was that he was in X Games. And I remember watching X Games and like, just like, oh man, it's so cool watching these guys skate, I'm like, that'd be so cool to see that person. So the first time I ever got to see it in person was with my son. And I got to see it with my son because of this podcast and because of this community. And, so I've told my son before, I'm like, I know that I spend a lot of time doing podcast stuff. I know I spend a lot of time doing stuff on my car and, but it's brought some pretty cool things into our life,
Yeah.
Bucky has that new board that he released a while back that has the bucket on the bottom of it.
Yeah.
he did 100 of them, and I ended up buying one, and because he signed it and numbered it, and I ended up buying one for my son for his birthday. And it's been sitting in my closet because my son's birthday is on August 14th.
Oh, sick.
So it's been sitting in my closet in a box, and I'm looking forward to giving it to him. But I mean, those boards sold out in like 20 minutes too.
Yeah.
So and it's cool because like I can message Bucky and be like, hey,
I
what's
need
going on?
that.
Well, I mean, yeah. Well, so I messaged him, or no, I recorded with him some because he did like the little public service announcements where he
Mhm.
was talking about he did one of them, he did tire pressure, and another one he did something else that I put him in some
Mhm.
episodes. I got one more that I've got to put in an episode that he did. But when I was chatting with him, I was like, yeah, I thought about messaging you to write happy birthday Luke on there, and he's like, oh, you should have messaged me, I totally would have done that. Damn it.
Yeah, he
I like
seems.
I mean, he's super chill, but I also feel like I don't want to bother him, like with
Yeah,
something like that. But then like I ask him, he's like, oh yeah, I totally would have done that. So like now I know, okay, moving forward, if there's anything that I would want him to do, like, hey, can you do me his favor or whatever. I mean, I did the giveaway with the hats that he signed. I was like, hey, if I send you these hats, would you sign them for me so I could do them as giveaways? He's like, yeah. So I mailed them to him. He mailed them back signed and gave them away. So
that's so
it was,
awesome. It's it's crazy that all these people are now into like motorsports.
yeah.
Skateboarding is ultimately why I even own Subarus now.
Oh
Like
yeah.
like I grew up skateboarding and playing like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, which
Yeah.
Bucky was in that game. And because of skateboarding, then after I broke my ankle enough times and got
Yeah.
older and had some money, I got into snowboarding. And because of that, I was like, I need all-wheel drive.
Yeah.
So I started buying Subarus, and it's been a crash and burn life ever since.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's funny because like a lot of people will say like, "Oh my gosh, I played Bucky on Tony Hawk Pro Skater." And I never did like play the skating games, but
Yeah. I think I was really young when that came out. I was maybe 12 when the game came out, so I was still in my adolescence. But
yeah,
anybody that was in college or already working, probably wasn't as prominent. But
yeah.
he did the rally competition. I know. I'm trying to think how that all turned out. But the X
Mm.
Games, they actually had like a rally
Yeah,
event that they started doing. I remember
yeah.
watching him jump. I was like, what?
Yeah, I didn't know I didn't know about that. I didn't know that he had done a rally with Rihanna and Gelsomino.
Hmm.
I didn't know that he drove rally for Rallycross. I mean, Rallycross for Subaru for a few years. Because like again, when I met him, I didn't know that he had done all that stuff. I didn't know that
Hmm.
he went over to Japan and toured the facility and drove out the Nuremberg, or
Yeah.
however you say it, the
Nuremberg Ring or whatever.
drove the STI that has like the fastest record for a
Hmm.
sedan. I didn't know all that, until I started watching Launch Control, and I was like, man, this is really cool. So like after now, like saying that I have him on the podcast, like it's means a lot more to me to be like, yeah, I had Bucky on the podcast,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I had Rihanna and Gelsomino, and
Yeah.
so it's pretty cool, and then like having Warwick Patterson and Christopher Bose, because I mean, Subaru Launch Control is a big deal.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, I've listened to more of your podcast than I've watched of Launch Control. So there's that.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's really cool too about the podcast is like, I think people who listen to podcasts think like, "Oh man, podcasts are so cool," But I think, like me, I was like, would have never thought about being on a podcast, and so I think having the podcast gives people an opportunity to feel like they're doing something like really cool. Like I would have never thought that I would be on a podcast. I get to be
Yeah.
on, you know,
Yeah.
but I mean, you get to be on a podcast that's part of this community, and the thing that I like about my position as the podcaster is it's not like a lot of these other podcasts that you listen to or that I listen to. Like, there's no way that I could reach out to some of these people that I listen to their podcasts and just message them and be like, "Hey, how's it going?"
Hmm.
You don't get that with other podcasters. So I like that I get to, I'm part of the community too, and not just
Yeah.
some guy that's out there doing a podcast.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. I'm super pumped on what you're doing, man. I think it's,
Thank you.
I think it's helping a ton of people. My goal was, oh, maybe I'll make a website and see if I can help people actually figure out what tires they should get, but it's a little bit different when people are actually able to sit down and hear people's personality come through as they're driving to work or doing their workout, like it's,
And I mean, that's the beauty of podcasts in general, is you can listen to them anywhere. I mean, when I go for walks sometime, I'll listen to a podcast. When I'm doing dishes, I'll listen to a podcast. Anytime I'm driving in my car, a lot of times I'll listen to a podcast. Yeah, if you're working out, listen to a podcast. I mean,
yeah,
there's just like, you can listen to it anywhere. I
yeah,
mean, that's great.
yeah. Oh, I love it, man. Man, I think I've kept you up super late. What time is it there? It's probably like 11 p.m., right?
Yeah, but it's a Friday and I'm always up late anyway. So,
Oh, good. Good. I'm
yeah,
kind of a night owl.
yeah.
Well, let's see. Is there anything, I mean, everything, uh, that I was curious about, you answered it in the article
Okay.
superbly. Is
Thank you.
there anything? Oh, definitely. Thank you, man. Seriously. Um, I think it's super cool for people to see that, hey, I don't necessarily have to spend $800 right out of the gate if I want to go take my car and have
Yeah.
fun in it. I really like that side of it, because even though everything on the site is lifted,
Yeah.
it's that's just the name. It's more of like,
Yeah.
let's just get outside, like let's go see some stuff. But is there anything else that you don't feel like, anything else that you wanted to cover about your car specifically, or anything else that you wanted to share with people?
I mean, one of the questions that you had asked is, what is a good starting place for people with mods? And like in my situation, I didn't really have the money to do any mods, but getting decals for your car, you can get like the emblem overlays from Orsini or Vinyl and Designs. And I mean, she does like a really great job with those overlays, and she does them custom and everything like that. So Hope from Orsini, and then Jen with Eccentric Designs. I mean, she does a lot of really good decals for all different parts of your car. And so it's just such a great way to, I mean, you look at the fender stripes that I just put on Pearl,
Hmm.
it took me a
Yeah,
long time to actually, decide to do it. But I
yeah.
mean, that's just doing the fender stripes, maybe putting some, uh, decals on your reflectors. I mean, there's little subtle touches that you can do that are very minimal in cost that can really change the look of your car. And so, like, that's always a good starting point. And again, like I mentioned in the article, it depends on where you live and what you want to do. And then also your budget, because there's certain things that you can do on a budget.
Hmm.
So, and if I think one of the things that I'd really like to say to people, especially if they're new to the community, and even just anybody in general, is don't ever be afraid to reach out to somebody, because so many people in the community are extremely helpful. If you want to, even like people with big accounts that it might seem intimidating, you can reach out to them and they'll message you back, in most cases. But
Yeah.
yeah, I just want to say thank you too for this opportunity. It's always fun to do something new and different.
Well, thank you. It's been definitely a pleasure. Like I said, I wanted to holler at you a long time ago, but well, I'm kind of in the same boat too. I work a ton, probably doing 60-hour weeks and stuff like that. But no, it's it's all love, man. I'm super super stoked to have you on the website. Um, but yeah, man, I've noticed the same thing. It's the because I just went berserk. I just started off-roading. I went and bought a Jeep because I was like, well, now I want to do really bad stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and the Jeep community is nothing like the Subaru community, you know, not even remotely.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to go ask a question in a Jeep group, you got to think like, okay, what's the most degenerate thing I could say here? Like, you have to actually like show up and say like, hey, what's up, dickhead? Like that's literally how you have to enter the conversation. But yeah, it's I feel like, you know, I've got a really messed up back. I broke my spine as a kid, or a couple vertebrae, and so I was just all messed up and started weightlifting. It was like the only thing that helped. And I feel like the Subaru community and the gym are kind of in the same thing. You know, I'll talk to accounts that are, like you said, huge, and it's like intimidating. Like, oh, I don't know if that person would want to hear from me. You ask them a question, they reply. It's like the same thing. Like, I'll be in the gym and I'll see some dude that's super jacked, and I'll be like, hey, what are you doing for traps? Like, how do you get those things bigger?
Yeah.
And you expect them to say, piss off, you know, like, get out of here. But it's, you know, it's the same thing. It's like, we're all in here to just like have fun, do better, be better, and, you know, just enjoy life, you know. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the community it's so supportive, and we get excited for each other. And that's
Yeah.
what's really cool too, is like, you can say, oh, I'm going to do this new mod, and everybody gets excited for you, even if it's something really small,
Yeah.
you know, because y'all know that we started somewhere, and, you know, we get excited about our own mods, and it's cool that other people get excited for us, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's been the most, I mean, the majority of cars that I've owned have all been Subarus. You know, I probably owned like 20.
Wow.
I don't know what's wrong with me, man. I always, like, right now I own 3 cars. I always own at least 2, and I can't help myself. I'm like, oh, I want one of these. Oh, I want to drive that for a couple of years. But yeah, it's always, my first experience was in the like first generation legacy, like,
Yeah.
forums. I just always remember being like, dang, these people are so nice. Like, this is weird. Of course, we were all the outcasts of the Subaru community, having like first gen legacies. Or, yeah, like all the Impreza and WRX guys, you know, they were over on Naziok talking trash to each other. But everybody on the Legacy Central website was all like real supportive, like, oh, okay, here's what you got to do. Oh, wait, here's where your problem is, you know. But yeah, I think as a whole, you know, and especially like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but I feel like everybody that's a little bit more like off-road, like just as a whole, this is obviously a generalization, but everybody that's more off-road oriented, like outdoor oriented with their builds, I feel like there's a much more like, there's none of that like hate. Like, you go to car shows, like tuner shows, everybody's like, you know, screw that guy, you know, or,
Yeah.
you know, instead of being like, hey, that's sick, they're like, oh, I bet I'm better than that guy.
No, 100%. I mean, I agree that the off-road community especially within the Subaru community, that there's a lot more support, there's a lot more camaraderie, there's a lot more, you know, feeling welcome and
Mhm.
acceptance. And so I think that's what a lot of people, you know, really enjoy. I mean, and that's, since I have a Crosstrek, most of the people that I've connected with are overland off-road builds, and then that's been the majority of my guests, and then it's also been the majority of my audience. So, you know, I've had a few tuner cars on here and there, and I've had some stock cars on. But like what somebody mentioned one time too, that since the off-road community is so small within the overall community of Subaru, that having the podcast is really good for the off-road community, because then it's putting a spotlight on the off-road community that has been so small within the overall Subaru community.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, just in general, man, we're such a small percentage of the,
yeah,
you know, of vehicle ownership, honestly. Like,
yeah,
yeah, okay. Hey, I got a random question I wanted to ask you.
yeah.
Okay. Money, no object, any car in the world, what would you drive? Can't be a Subaru.
Okay. It's tough. My dream car is a 911, like 911 turbo, but
Yes.
one of
What
the old,
year?
one of the older ones, like mid
Okay.
90s.
Yes, with the big.
Yeah, with
Yeah.
not even necessarily like the big spoiler, but what I like about that generation or that model of the Porsche is that the rear wheel wells flare out more.
Yeah.
Like the one from Bad Boys, the black one from Bad Boys, like that. That's
Yeah.
a that's an awesome Porsche.
Were they still air cooled back then?
I don't know.
I
See, I don't know anything about Porsches. I just think that they look awesome. I love
Yeah.
the body style. They're just, I don't know. There's just something about them that has like this draw to me.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
I've always liked them. But
So as a kid, was that kind of like your magnet as far as like
not really.
appreciating?
No, I mean, it wasn't until I got older, that I started noticing Porsches. And I'm not even like a Porsche enthusiast of like, I don't like get Porsche magazines and like
Yeah.
study Porsches and stuff. It's all purely based on just the way that they look and the fact that the engine is in the back. I've always thought that was really cool. And they're pretty fast and they just seem like they would be a lot of fun to drive.
Yeah. Well, and they share an engine configuration with our cars, so it's not that crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. My other car would be, and it would be like an off-road is I really, really love FJ Cruisers.
Oh yes. So the mid 2000s
Yeah.
ones, or are you talking like okay, cool. Yeah, the old FJ stuff, like the FJ 80s, those are cool. But yeah, the FJ Cruiser,
Yeah.
it's got such a like scrunched construction where it looks like it would just have like perfect approach and departure angles.
So the first time, like I think I've test driven an FJ Cruiser twice. And so one was back in like, when was it? Like maybe like close to 2000, maybe it was like 2008, somewhere around there, something like
Okay.
that. And one of my friends worked at a Toyota dealership out here, but he worked in like he was selling the Scions. And I
Okay.
was like, "Hey, can I test drive one of the FJ Cruisers?" He was like, "Yeah, sure. Drive one for fun." And it was a little rainy, and I turned the windshield wipers on. I was like, "Holy crap! This thing has 3 windshield wipers. This is awesome!" Like that alone, like just the fact that it had 3 windshield wipers, I was like, "This is crazy!" Like I've never seen a car with 3 windshield wipers because it's like so wide and
Mhm.
narrow this way. But I just like I knew that they were really, really capable off road. And again, they're just, they're funky looking, they're different. And I've always been attracted to things that are different,
Mhm.
kind of like out of the norm. And so, but yeah, I mean, I've seen some pretty nice FJ Cruiser builds. And but yeah, those are pretty cool.
Yeah, I've seen a couple that are straight axle swapped in the front. So instead of having like CV axles like our Subarus have, like the FJ Cruiser has CV axles up front,
Yeah.
but getting just a solid axle tube so that you can just. I don't know if you've ever driven anything with solid axles, but it's like if you're like, let's say you want to climb up a boulder or something,
Yeah.
you put one tire up on the boulder, and since both wheels are connected by a solid axle, it forces the lower wheel down against the ground, and you can climb anything and go anywhere. And I've actually thought, like in the past, I've thought like, oh, I'd love to have an FJ Cruiser, but then I've also thought I would feel so bad just
Yeah.
tearing it up.
Yeah. No, they look really cool.
Yeah, I love them, but they're people want like 35 grand for one that's
They're
absolutely clapped out.
they're very pricey and they're horrible on gas.
Yeah, the 12 mpg gangers.
Yeah.
Well, holy heck, man. I think I'm going to let you get to bed because I've probably kept you here for like 3 hours, 2 hours. But man, thank you. Seriously, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um,
My son is, this is the weekend that he was supposed to be with me, but he's at a camp for 2 weeks. So
okay,
I've got
cool.
time.
Heck yeah, I love it. Oh, I do want to. I mean, I wanted to put that in the article too. I already put it over there, but I just want people to recognize that they can go and like support you on Patreon.
Yeah.
Check out the podcast. Share the podcast. Follow you. Like spread the word.
Yeah.
Uh,
On the, if you're a big fan of the podcast, the website has merch. And like right now, I have doing 10% off all the hats, because I figure
cool.
all the Subie Fest events going around. If you want to go out to one of the Subie Fest events with a Subie You Podcast hat and rep the podcast,
Heck
you use
yeah.
discount code podcast10 and get 10% off, and it's free shipping too. So
Heck yes. Yeah, I just bought a house, and so I got to get my savings account back up. But my next, once I get my stuff back up, I want to join you on Patreon. I just want to encourage anybody else, if you can do it, to do it. We need to support this guy and support what he's doing.
yeah, I mean the biggest thing with the support for the podcast and wanting to, I guess, uh, monetize it is so that I can have the ability to make it out to events.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had people like, "Hey, you're gonna go out to Wicked Big Meet?" Like, I don't know. I'm gonna
I
see
got
if
to work.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not just that, but it's also, I'd have to fly out, and I'd want to be able to spend enough time. And it's this new job; it's hard to take time off because we're so small and we're so busy. But not that it's not impossible, uh, but like I was waiting to see if Subaru of America was going to fly me out there because they took me out to Boxer Fest in 2021. They took me out to Subie Fest California in 2022, and I was like, hey, if y'all have the ability, I'd like to go out to Wicked Big Meet because there's a lot of people I want to meet out there and that people
Mm-hmm.
that want to meet me. And then they said no, that they weren't going to take me out to any events. And so I was like, well, if I go, I'm going to have to go on my own. I'm gonna have to
Your
like
own time.
pay my own way, and it's too far to drive to Wicked Big Meet. I mean, it's up in Pennsylvania or no, Connecticut. So I'm like, I'd
Okay.
have to fly. So, wasn't able to make it to that. People have been asking me, hey, are you going to come out to, Subie Fest, California again? I'm like, no, unfortunately not. I'm like, hey, are you going to come up to Subaru Flat Fest this year? I'm like, I can't make it to that either.
Yeah.
Like, because because of switching jobs, I had to like do some stuff with my 401k. And so now I have to like pay a lot of taxes and
Oh
stuff. So,
no.
yeah. So I like,
Oh,
that's where all my extra money is going is to pay taxes right now. So,
dude.
uh,
I
so next year I'm hoping that it'll be a better year and I can make it out to at least a couple of events because, and then there's all of the like Subaru Love Promise that, people do all different sorts of charitable events that I would like to be able to help support, whether I can go out there and actually participate or just, send funds to help them out. So like if
yeah.
they're doing a toy drive, it's like, well, I can't go out there and physically give you a toy, but if y'all have a link where somebody can just buy a toy and ship it or donate, $50, $100 or like that's the kind of things that I would like to be able to help support more of, and so like I'm not trying to make money with the podcast just so that I can like have extra money for me. It's all going back to the podcast and hopefully allowing me to get out and meet more people and
Yeah.
events.
Well, just for the record, we have no problem with people being compensated for their efforts.
Yeah, I
But
mean, yeah, because like if, next year when Wicked Big Meat comes around, if people are like, "Hey, you're gonna be able to make it out," I want to be able to go like, "Yeah, I got it, no big deal. Let me just
yeah,
flight, book a hotel, whatever I need to do. I want to be able to have the means to do that." So, because I want to go out and record with people too, man. It's so fun recording in person.
hmm
It's like the sound quality and just being there across the table from somebody recording in person. That's my favorite thing to do. So when I've had the opportunity to record in person, I absolutely love it. It's so much fun. It's so cool because like it's cool for the other. people too to have that experience of like putting the headphones on and having the mic and being able to hear themselves and hear me, and they're like, oh, it's so cool. Like you can like, it's awesome. Like that's like the best experience.
Yeah.
So because all my guests are remote, I want to be able to have more of those. I want to be able to give that experience to other people too.
Yeah. Well, that's, I mean, that was like initially, like when I first heard your podcast, I was like thinking, what can I do to, obviously you can share stuff on social media, but that's all temporary. Everything gets lost so quickly in the stories or in the algorithm. There's always new stuff being posted, but I was just thinking, I was like, oh, maybe I could get him on the website. Maybe that, because I don't know if you're familiar with like SEO or anything like that, but I was like, okay, maybe I can get some backlinks to his website. Maybe I can link his podcast. Maybe that will like help spread some awareness. But yeah, man, I'm so stoked on it. And I just want to see it continue to grow,
Yeah, me too. I want to be able to keep doing this for a long time. And I I mean, I enjoy just doing the podcast as a podcast, but I also enjoy being able to connect with more people and help them, share their story, and getting messages from people like saying that, they really enjoyed the episode, or, oh, I wasn't following this person, now I am. And I mean, I had like a couple of guys, Charlie, he goes by Falcon Rue One, and
Mhm.
he goes by Judy the Subie. Like Anthony was like, dude, we're like best friends now because of the podcast. So it's like to
Yeah.
hear stuff like that, it's like super cool. I mean, what it's done for people and how it's helped people and just get people connected. And somebody like, oh, I've been chatting with this person for like a long time, and now I get to hear their voice.
Hmm.
You- I learned more about them, and so it's cool to hear stuff like that.
Yeah. I've seen your t-shirts and your hats at the Oregon Trail Rally.
Oh,
So I see people running around with your stuff. I'm like, hey, it's yeah, the Oregon Trail Rally is like a different experience. It's that's yeah, like I said, I'll do whatever I can on my end to accommodate you making it to it, whether that's next year, 5 years, whenever. Like
yeah. I
if
still
we
got
could,
time. I'm not worried about it.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's I was never like I always thought it was cool, but I got hooked a couple years ago when I don't remember if it's like Spectator Point B or where it is, but in Dufur, Oregon, there's this one spectator point where if you had a really long arm, you could reach out and touch the cars almost. I mean, they obviously like rope it off and everything, but getting sprayed with gravel and hearing just people hit rev limiter around a corner, you're like, oh, okay, like I'm sold on this. Like, like let's go.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's a crazy experience, but yeah, we got to get you out at some point. And
I definitely want that.
yeah, Mitch is always there, but he's always shooting. Like he's always shooting video and photo. So,
He's
but
a
yeah,
busy.
dude, he really is, man. And I'm always super busy, but I'm always doing whatever I can to help. Anytime he wants to try like a new ad campaign or something, I'm like, all right, let's get in and see if we can make this happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good dude for sure. Well, dang, man. Yeah, I'll let you get to bed. Sorry for keeping you up so late.
Okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, this has been my pleasure, man. I really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. So, dude, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, I know I really enjoyed it. And again, it's been great to be on here, and I'm honored to be a part of the website. So
Oh, thank you. It's like I've said 100 times, man. It's my pleasure to have you on there. So, thank you,
yeah.
brother. I appreciate it, man.
Welcome.
Dang, if there's anything else that you ever want to add to that article or anything that you want to change or supplement on it or anything else that comes to your mind, it's a living document. So just
Okay.
let me
Sweet.
know. We'll add it in, man.
Yeah, awesome.
Cool, brother.
Good weekend.
Yeah. Oh, you too, man. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon.